But one thing that's not as usual is we're getting started early, 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 bro. I'm give a couple minutes, maybe 1 to 2, for folks to come in that maybe don't get that original notification. They can come in as we get started. I've got multiple things to talk about today, as usual. Back to the usuals. But also, without much time to get to it all, I've got the damage report as usual on Mondays, right after this, which I'll be jumping straight to. So I can't go over, bro. So I got to go early. You know what I'm saying? It's a bit of a disappointing birthday weekend for me. Yes, yesterday was my birthday. I'm a ripe young age. You guys can figure that part out. I watched my Rams lose to the Seahawks. I know there's some Seahawks folks in the chat. Congratulations. It sucks, but you do have an SC quarterback, Sam Darnold. So I think I know where I'm headed for my fanfare when it comes to the Super Bowl. Although this is one of those comfortable Super Bowls. I don't necessarily hate either one of these teams and the makeup of them. So whoever wins is fine. But I've got one thing happening, at least for that. That's all the nonsense stuff that's been going on in my life. How about all the real stuff that we need to actually get to that's been happening in this world, which I'm not even going to start with. I know, the whole point is to start with all the breaking, most intriguing, most talked about things that are going on in the world. But sometimes I think other things that are going on that also represent how devastating these folks are that are running our country is also sometimes good to go ahead and start with. So hopefully, let's see how many folks have now piled in. Hopefully, the piling has got to the normal amounts pretty soon. But if you guys just jumping in, thank you guys for being here. We're getting started early. We got a lot of things happening. Thank you, Christina Lisa Brown, for the happy birthday wishes. And Wind Runner Dragon, Dwayne J3013 says, I knew you would be here early. How did you know that? What is it about today that made you know that? I'm not sure what it is, because normally I have to try and go over on Mondays, and then I stress John out and the TDR crew. Okay, let's stop talking before I'm no longer early. Dragoline 69. Nice. Thank you for the happy birthday wishes to everyone that shouted them out. I think I'm kind of moving at a slow pace right now because I'm trying to make sure I keep all of my energies and emotions in check. But this is something that is unsurprising, but is happening to one Senator Bill Cassidy. I'll tell you why it's very ironic that it's happening to him, considering he's a big Trump guy, and you can tell from this commercial that he ran last year, his campaign ad for Bill Cassidy.
Trump, Senator Cassidy, delivering for Louisiana. Cassidy stood with President Trump to pass one big beautiful bill, providing historic investments in border security and tax relief for working families, boosting American energy production and manufacturing. And Cassidy worked with President Trump to combat deadly fentanyl, delivering new penalties for drug traffickers. Call Senator Cassidy. Thank him for fighting for Louisiana and America.
That's Senator Bill Cassidy's campaign ad in coordination with Donald Trump. Donald Trump and Cassidy. Cassidy and Donald Trump. Trump and Cassidy. A team working together for Louisiana. Bill Cassidy, Donald Trump, Bill Cassidy, Donald Trump. That is until Donald Trump, that guy that was featured in that ad with Bill Cassidy, how they're best friends, posted this. Highly respected America First Congresswoman Julia Letlow, one of the wonderful state of Louisiana, is a great star, has been from the very beginning, and only gets better. I'm hearing that Julia is considering launching her campaign for the United States Senate in Louisiana, a place I love and won big 6 times, including primaries, which is very clear he wants to point out. Primaries. He says, I know Julia well, have seen her tested at the highest and most difficult levels, and she's a total winner. A proud mother of 2 children, Julia is a wonderful person, has always delivered for Louisiana, and would continue doing so in the U.S. Senate. As your next senator, Julia will work tirelessly to grow our economy, cut taxes and regulations, support our amazing farmers and fishermen, champion Louisiana oil and gas, unleash American energy dominance, promote made in the USA, keep our border secure, stop migrant crime, ensure law and order, strengthen our military and veterans, and protect our always under siege Second Amendment. All those things that Donald Trump just listed are things that the only way she's going to do that is she completely ignores and doesn't follow anything Donald Trump has done, because he's done none of those things. Okay, last part from this. Should she decide to enter this race, Julia Letlow has my complete and total endorsement. Run, Julia, run. I think you can tell from the tone of what we started with that in order for a Julia Letlow to win, she'd have to run and beat one Bill Cassidy, who apparently is buddy buddy and Donald Trump's best friend, and Donald Trump loves him too, but apparently not. So in response to that, you can glad for Bill Cassidy's page, and he posted after this whole announcement came out. He goes, "I'm proudly running for re-election as a principled conservative who gets things done for the people of Louisiana. If Congresswoman Letlow decides to run, I'm confident I'll win." Well, I mean, Donald Trump isn't confident you'll win because Donald Trump thinks that he's a kingmaker. And every time that he, says anything or endorses someone, a full and utter and total endorsement that he likes to say, he thinks that's just over and done with. And so is this, this lackey, Eric Doherty, who posted this and who Donald Trump reposted this message from, which gives us an indication as to why, oh, why Donald Trump is turning on his good friend Bill Cassidy, who runs campaign ads featuring Donald F. and Trump. Doherty posted just in. CNN was forced. Who forced him? To report that Donald Trump has a nearly 100% win rate in any Republican primary he endorses in ahead of midterms. Nearly 100% win rate. Whatever. Just want to point that little caveat out. He continues and says Trump is primary challenging Louisiana Senator Bill Cassidy. This is the main part, who voted to convict Trump during impeachment. Trump has the magic touch, in quotes. When Trump goes against you, you go in the grinder. Fire emojis. GOP senators who voted to convict Trump won their next election, just 1 out of 5. And he calls him the kingmaker in chief. So Donald Trump is reposting this whole thing that Eric Doherty is saying. The reason that Donald Trump is now endorsing Julia Letlow is because Bill Cassidy voted to convict Trump during impeachment. That is, when Donald Trump was breaking laws like he's doing right now. And then nearly all Republicans were out against him, specifically on the January 6th insurrection and the fight and the attempt to overturn that election. And then they started flipping back and forth on it, as well as the rest of his illegal activities. Bill Cassidy voted for the impeachment part. And now, from that long ago, Donald Trump is still holding that grudge. And I feel like Bill Cassidy has always known that Donald Trump has continued to hold that grudge, especially since ever since all that, he's been doing crazy things that don't make any sense based on the fact that Bill Cassidy is a medical doctor, understands how vaccines work, but was the guy who said this about RFK Jr., who was the handpicked selection for one Donald Trump who he wants to get back in the good graces of. So he said all of this.
These commitments and my expectation that we can have a great working relationship to make America healthy again is the basis of my support. He will be the secretary, but I believe he will also be a partner in working for this end. If Mr. Kennedy is confirmed, I will use my authority as chairman of the Senate Committee with oversight of HHS to rebuff any attempt to remove the public's access to life-saving vaccines without ironclad causational scientific evidence that can be accepted and defended before the mainstream scientific community and before Congress. I will watch carefully for any effort to wrongfully sow public fear about vaccines between confusing references of coincidence and anecdote. But my support is built on assurances that this will not have to be a concern, and that he and I can work together to build an agenda to make America healthy again. We need a leader at HHS who will guide President Trump's agenda to make America healthy again. Based on Mr. Kennedy's assurances on vaccines and his platform to positively influence Americans' health, it is my consideration that he will get this done.
That was Bill Cassidy. Clearly, this is the small piece of his half hour. He had a very long speech talking at the time when they were looking to confirm RFK Jr. to be in the role of HHS secretary, which is now destroying people's lives, causing more health issues and measles outbreaks, along with other things, based off of his anti-vax stances that he was very clear about espousing when he was both running for president and when he was trying to get this position. Bill Cassidy knows better. Oh, some things are happening behind me. Jeez. Bill Cassidy knows better. Bill Cassidy has always known better. But in that particular case, Bill Cassidy had to try and say, well, I mean, I'll work with him on this whole situation. It'll be great. And when he did that, other senators who have no mind of their own, like Tom Tillis, took that baton and he ran with it too.
To the committee and to Cassidy personally.
That's right. Well,
and Cassidy has come to the conclusion that those were not truthful
look, I
promises
told
and assertions.
Cassidy was willing to vote. If Cassidy had voted no on Kennedy, I would have voted no, because that's how much stock I put in Bill Cassidy's technical expertise. He's just an extraordinary, brilliant person. But I think he appropriately was going to give Kennedy a chance to say, look, we're going to cut through the rhetoric. We're just going to see.
Haley, thank you so much.
No, we're great. I think we're good.
Thank you.
He said, as a practical matter, we need to see if he's going to be right on vaccines, and he's drifting a bit. I mean,
isn't that weird? Okay, so Tom Tillis, there was a couple weird things about that. The first weird thing was the fact that they're having an interview while a waitress walks up and hands them their salad and their soups and salads and says, anything else you guys need? Actually, I need some more napkins, Jennifer. I can't, there's a fly in my soup. You know what? I asked for this to be well done, and it's actually rare. Why do they have interviews like that? That was weird. Anyway, Tom Tillis at the time, these are all old videos from last year. Tom Tillis at the time pointed out the reason he even voted to confirm RFK Jr. is because he trusts Bill Cassidy, who put his, reputation on the line in order to try and buddy back up to Donald Trump, because Donald Trump hates him for one time doing the right thing against Donald Trump. That's how he acts. So this isn't the beginning of Bill Cassidy's attempt to try and get back in Trump's good graces, which, as we know of now, none of that worked. So this is another post from Bill Cassidy, specifically from this particular article that points out the CDC vaccine advisor questions the need for a polio shot now because they're expanding, because RFK Jr. is effing crazy. So in response to that, Cassidy says this: claiming that risk from vaccines is greater than the threat from disease has led to the highest rate of measles in decades. I'm glad you're acknowledging that now, Bill. Undermining the faith in polio vaccine will lead to paralyzed children. What others are doing will be blamed on President Trump. Unfair, he says, but true. Even in his pushback, even in his clear acknowledgement of what real is versus the fakeness that both RFK Jr. and Donald Trump like to push, even then, like most people who are still afraid of criticizing Donald Trump and his devastating approach to how he's destroying this country, even then, he goes, what others are doing will be blamed on Trump. Unfair, but true, Bill Cassidy says. Man, so for a guy who's posting about how he's already promoting and endorsing your primary candidate, you're going to still point out how it's unfair that he appointed this guy who everyone knows is an anti-vaccine, is going to spread it on to no polio vaccines and any vaccines. We already know that. As he's pushing that, you're concerned about things being unfair to Donald Trump and not to anyone else around him. Won't even point out that RFK Jr. is the source behind this, and that Donald Trump also endorses him and says anything that RFK Jr. says is now the way that we approach our health initiatives here in this country. But for some reason, Bill Cassidy just can't find enough guts. He found like one, and then he threw it back out again. Here's more embarrassing things about Bill Cassidy. At the time, Sahil Kapoor pointed this out. When Donald Trump posted that, hey, I'm going to send somebody else to run against you in the primary. At the time, Bill Cassidy, this was his pinned post on Twitter or X. He says, great to be with POTUS in the Oval Office. This is what a great working relationship looks like. That's what he had posted at the time, and since he's kind of taken that away. It'd be a little bit too embarrassing to still have that up when everyone knows that he just posted about how you're a loser, hates you, and then reposted someone else saying that the reason you're a loser and that he hates you is because you one time voted against him when he was doing all this illegal activity, and therefore you better stop backing up normalcy in this country. This is what he replaced his pinned post with on his page, the same page where he also said, whoever's going to challenge me, I'm going to win. Look at this. It's a different kind of ad. Let's see if it features Trump.
Senate Majority Leader John Thune joined Bill Cassidy in Baton Rouge to discuss the No Tax on Tips initiative with workers here in the capital city.
We're here at this restaurant to talk about the tax cut for working families bill, which, among other things, said no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. So those waiters and waitresses and the people busing, they're going to have more money in their pocket because of this.
So we had some servers here. We talked about no tax on tips, and it is a significant amount of money. Not paying taxes on that, not paying taxes on overtime.
It allows us to put a little bit more money in our pockets.
One of the young ladies that we were chatting with has a 6-year-old son. So we talked about the advantage of the expanded child tax credit and what that's going to mean to her.
That's helping their bottom line when they go home.
We'll tell you that bill does help them a lot because most of them live paycheck to paycheck, and so anything they get back is an added bonus to them.
And if you're a small business owner, we made permanent some tax policy that is going to make it easier for them to keep more of what they earn so that they can invest it in their business.
If you come to Baton Rouge, you want the best oysters in town, come to Phil's Oyster Bar, and you can talk to the waitresses and find the benefit of the tax cut for working family bill.
Yes, sir. Senator, thank you, man. Great to see you,
Anthony.
Thanks a lot.
That seemed like a hamstrung way of trying to incorporate no tax on tips with a local business that you're trying to make sure you're promoting and say that if you like this business, they like me, and therefore you should also vote for me. And he's also teamed up with John Thune. No more Donald Trump in his ads where he's the partner and buddy with. Now it's John Thune. It's just another Republican senator that does the same thing Bill Cassidy does. Says one thing normal, and then after Donald Trump ifs at him, then he cowers and runs back away and climbs back into Donald Trump's anus. That's all they do. They're afraid of this guy because he might say, I'm going to completely and utterly endorse your primary opponent. And after he does so, you're scared because for some reason, if you lose that seat, that's the end of your life. But when you're taking part in endorsing and promoting people that end other people's lives, literally, not just their professional political life where they get to make money and then also have some kind of promotion of who they are and fill their ego. Instead of that, when they're actually killing people, who cares? I need that guy in place in order to promote my political life, my career. It has to continue on. This guy is a medical doctor. So after the events that happened over the weekend that we all know about, in fact, the day of the latest murder, I mean, as of right now that I know of, at the hands of Border Patrol and ICE, Bill Cassidy posted this. Maybe he's trying to find one more piece of his guts. The events in Minneapolis are incredibly disturbing. The credibility of ICE and DHS are at stake. Oh, no, he fucked it up. There must be a full joint federal and state investigation. We can trust the American people with the truth. Can you? Can you? Because so far, you haven't trusted the American people with the truth. In fact, what you've peddled at the American people are a bunch of lies. And then when you didn't one time, Donald Trump, the peddler of all lies that you've been following behind this whole time, has turned on your stupid ass. But still, he folds a little bit even in his messaging about this. The credibility of ICE and DHS are at stake. They're not at stake. The credibility of DHS and ICE are long gone. And they've been long gone for other folks that have experienced the things that they've done for decades. So let's not keep talking about how this guy has any kind of principles or anything where he's pushing back on Donald Trump, or even in this case, because every time he's had to do that, he folds a little bit to Donald Trump because he's still afraid of him, despite the fact that Donald Trump has nothing else he wants to do with one Bill Cassidy. I hope he loses that primary, and then somehow in the state of Louisiana, people realize that this other woman is just as bad as the rest of these folks, and they kick her ass out too. I mean, that is if we have midterm elections, because that same Donald Trump that Bill Cassidy is still afraid of has been touting and continually trying to normalize this thought that we should cancel those midterm elections. Isn't it? It's kind of weird how all that works. How no matter how many times people have seen Donald Trump literally turn on them, despite their unwavering loyalty to his corrupt criminal ass, they keep doing it and go, "What happened? I kissed your ass though. How are you going to turn on me now? I said one thing to try and save my career and act like that I'm not just fully a sycophant for everything you do. And now you're going to turn on me." But he'll call you the guy who's a traitor against the United States of America. And in Donald Trump's mind, the United States of America's interests are his and his only. Maybe you guys are just showing up. That's the whole first story. We're already done with one of them. I got lots to talk about. I know that we've seen what happened over the weekend. I understand that many folks have seen 25 angles of what happened over the weekend. I'm not sure how many people actually avoided seeing all of that happened over the weekend. So I was tussling back and forth in my brain to try and figure out, do I really need to cover this? Like, do I really need to break down what it is that we all saw, that we all know we saw, and versus what it is that they're all saying? I will get to what it is that they're saying. So I'm going to give a light, I guess, a review of what it is that happened over the weekend. So as folks are still coming in, yeah, we started early. I've got a lot to talk about. The first wasn't even about all the things that happened over the weekend. But let's go ahead and dive into that now. If you guys just getting here, we'll be going for the next hour. I got TDR coming up next, and welcome to the watch list. Hi. This is actually the watch party. We do this every day, especially on the best damn day of the week, which is this Monday. Graphic warning to what is that happened over the weekend. I'll be showing a couple angles of this video. I won't show the super long ones because, like I said, I feel like we've seen this and we understand what happened despite what they're trying to tell us. But in this one particular video I'm going to start with is one of the angles of this shooting of one Alex Preddy, that that nurse, that veterans nurse that was killed over the weekend, and the pauses that come show some of these moments, one specifically when his firearm that he legally owned was pulled off of his back, his literal back, while he was facing downward. Just wanted to set that up in case you guys hadn't heard about that part yet. Here's this first video with those moments freeze framed. There was multiple moments when the person who edited that video down froze it when one of those, ICE thugs then snatched the gun off of the guy's back and ran off with it. There are some people that reported the first gunshot that we did here was him accidentally discharging Alex Preddy's gun. I'm not sure the validity of that. Into the ground as he was holding it face down, and then that's when the rest of them got to shooting. And the rest of that shooting got to happening, and unloaded clips into this man's deceased body. But the Washington Post was even on top of it. They gave an even clearer view of that one moment when they took Alex Preddy's gun off of him. There it is again. Snatched away, guy with the gray jacket runs off. There it is one more time before shooting then happens. I mean, immediately after. In fact, the guy, it seems, that shot first, there's people of it who have analyzed and looked closely and zoomed in and slowed down and identified every moment of this interaction, this murder that happened. And as everyone saw, he was on the ground. He was disarmed from a gun he didn't have access to at all, but also legally was allowed to carry in this country that, I feel like I said this a couple weeks ago, wait until they get to the point where they start saying it's crazy for you to have a legally owned firearm in this country after the decades of this party talking about how, look, the next Democratic president, next democratically controlled Congress is going to take your guns away. They just took a legally owned firearm from a man and then murdered him in the streets. And then ever since then, they've been talking about how it's wrong for people to have guns in the United States of America. Donald Trump's fascist regime is talking about how we're not supposed to have guns in the United States of America. I wonder where the NRA is. But still, in case you hadn't actually seen, this is the view from, there was a woman wearing a pink jacket from the first view that was seen on Saturday morning. This is the back end of her view of what has it happened afterwards. In case you haven't seen it, this is probably the most graphic video of it. It ends with these criminals, these murderers, literally unloading magazines into this guy. So just to let you know that after I pointed out that they disarmed him.
Honestly. What did you just do?
We will need to watch it slow down over and over and over again. Every time you've seen Black Americans getting shot by police, not even these ICE agents, police over the years, and it gets recorded, and then we watch it, and then too many people say, well, what was he doing to get himself shot? We kind of set ourselves up for this new narrative of every time that they don't want to admit any kind of accountability for the things that they've done, they just say the same thing. Let's go ahead and talk about how the guy who was killed, the victim here, is the one that was the culprit. We've seen it over and over again, except it's always slid when it's Black and brown folks on the ground, hands up in their cars, reaching for a wallet, trying to stand up, trying to run away, getting shot. So in this case, as we see them in their extreme use and abuse of their power that they've been given, not by the American people, but by this fascist guy in the White House, we're seeing what it is that so many folks in this country have had to endure and watch. And then after George Floyd was murdered similarly in 2020, and then all of those protests and riots broke out during the summer, that's one of the first times that people were thinking, yo, wait a second, we're seeing this happen way too many times. And look how it somehow has gotten even worse. They just don't care anymore. As a matter of fact, they don't care that this was the statement that was provided by the family of one Alex Preddy. Michael and Susan Preddy, they said, we're heartbroken, but also very angry. Alex was a kind-hearted soul who cared deeply for his family and friends, and also the American veterans whom he cared for as an ICU nurse at the Minneapolis VA hospital. Alex wanted to make a difference in this world. Unfortunately, he will not be with us to see his impact. I do not throw around the term hero lightly. However, his last thought and act was to protect a woman. The sickening lies told about our son by the administration are reprehensible and disgusting. Alex is clearly not holding a gun when attacked by Trump's murdering and cowardly ICE thugs. He has his phone in his right hand, and his empty left hand is raised above his head while trying to protect the woman ICE just pushed down, all while being pepper sprayed. Please get to the truth about our son. He was a good man. Thank you, his family says. That's the statement from his family. Usually you would see something like that, and people have to, acknowledge that this person's family that you just murdered probably has like a higher level of clout and influence on what it is they can say about their kid and what it is that we all saw happen, but they blow this all aside. They really don't care. I'm going to get to all the responses to it, but what it is that I'm not sure many people are also pointing out on Saturday after they attacked Alex Preddy. I mean, after they attacked that woman in the streets and shoved her down and then pepper sprayed him before his phone was too close to their faces for them to fear for their lives now, and then decided to go ahead and murder him. After all that went down and people were upset and protests started growing to the degree that it wasn't already in the first place, and I think sub-zero degree temperatures, they even started jumping on this other guy. His name, at least he's a performer. I hadn't heard much about him before, but his name is Matt Allen. Matt Allen. Apparently many folks know who this man is, but they brutalized him too.
I'm a United States citizen! I have done nothing wrong! They're shaving me, spraying me, and beating me! I have done nothing!
Jesus Christ.
God damn.
Go. See the agents there tackling somebody in the street? piling on him and arresting him. Agents telling press to back up. The man is trying to scream out his name.
I have done nothing at all. My name is Matthew James. Obadiah Allen. I'm a United States citizen. If you kill me on the street,
They just sprayed pepper spray directly into the man's face.
you're gonna kill me. That's what you want. You want to kill me. You want to kill me on the street. You're gonna have to fucking kill me. I have done nothing wrong. Please, I don't feel safe with you. I feel like I'm going to be murdered. Please, I need somebody to help me. No, I need somebody to help me. I need EMT. No, I can't. I cannot. I need to see EMTs. I do not feel safe. I'm a United States citizen. I have done nothing wrong. They're chaining me, spraying me, and beating me. I have done nothing. I can't. Please, I can't breathe. I can't. I'm having a tough time breathing. Give me an ambulance. I'm having a tough time breathing. I'm having a tough time breathing. Give me an ambulance. I need an ambulance right now. I need an ambulance, please.
Agents are moving backward. They put the man on the truck.
And just like scenes that you may imagine happen in countries that we all like to call third world, undeveloped, uncivilized, led by dictators with masked, armed, militia type looking guys in the streets, it's exactly what happened in Minneapolis. Took a man that was asking for an ambulance, saying that he's having a tough time breathing. That is after they tackled him from behind while his hands were up when he couldn't even see them. Then they went through all that process, pinned him down, had knees in his back, and then threw him in the back of a pickup truck. I just want to keep reminding us, you guys, as we see these scenes and we keep acting like this is not what the United States has ever been, even though we've done this to people throughout our history. It's always to the right, quote unquote, right people, according to the people that are in power, or enough of us citizens who don't care enough to then take to the streets after this happens. And it's kind of what they're pushing for. But again, this guy, Matt Allen, he did post about the response to what is that happened. He says, "Thank you to everyone who has checked in with me and my wife regarding my violent assault at the hands of ICE agents this morning. I'm currently safe. My wife is currently safe. I will share more details soon." Again, this is from Saturday. I'm not sure what else he's posted since, but at least we know that he's alive. He says, "I have good reason to believe that ICE has stolen my cell phone, so that's not going to be a good way to contact me until further notice. As long as ICE can openly murder people in the streets with impunity, there is no justice. All power to the people," he then says. So he's alive. He made it out. Not sure what they tackled him for. Not sure what the next steps will be, because already, again, that was Saturday. There's multiple more violations of people's rights, their constitutional rights, their First, Second, Fourth Amendment rights. They're just piling on with all of the illegal activity and expect us to then forget the next one and the last one and the last one before that. How many folks are still talking about Renee Good, right? How many folks are still talking about the murdered people that they've in ICE custody already, and all the American citizens that they've detained. We're going on to talk about the next violent assault / murder at the hands of these criminals roving through the streets. You can't even keep up to keep talking about the devastating things that they're already doing because they're going on to the next devastating thing. Matter of fact, here's another one of those devastating things. When they go from murdering folks to then continuing their normalcy, their planned assault on children, it happened here too. Here's a 15 and 16-year-old brother and sister that it must have been the same day.
Get back! Get back! Get back! Get back! Do not cross this line, please.
Don't touch me. You have no right to touch me.
You're not touching, bud.
This is the line.
Back off! Back off!
How do you sleep? Hear my voice
You're
tonight.
a little girl.
I want you to hear this fucking voice.
Yeah, man, you're all going to jail.
You
Taking my neighbors.
Fuck you! We're gonna prosecute the shit out of you.
How the fuck they touch somebody, man?
15, 16-year-old kids, siblings, then snatched out of their cars, put in some other unmarked cars and driven off. Who knows? Maybe some people do have information on what has happened with those two. I haven't seen it yet, but they're definitely still snatching children up from a pedophile in the White House who we've seen them try and cover up all of his activity, his involvement with trafficking children throughout his life. That's what he is. That's what he does. So as he's got his agents in the streets carrying out his kidnapping of more children, who knows what they plan to do with these kids? They figure no one cares or knows about them because they're those, filthy, dirty illegals that aren't even illegals the vast majority of the time. But they're going to keep on down this road really fast. From Minnesota Public Radio, they did post at least about what it is that happened and who, I'm not sure if they hopefully didn't identify who these two children were that they went after. But U.S. Customs and Border Protection Office handcuffed and detained those two teenagers on Wednesday. Sorry, that was Wednesday. NPR News photojournalist Ben Hovland observed the arrest and said the agents appeared to have rear-ended that silver-colored SUV carrying those two minors. Then agents took that teenage boy into custody after taking a picture of his face. The young man appeared frightened as he was led away into a federal law enforcement vehicle. No, an unmarked vehicle with these criminal murderers. The driver, a teenage girl, was seen handing agents the U.S. passport book. Agents appeared to check her identification before then putting her into cuffs. A U.S. passport book. I wonder where she got one of those. Hovland said the girl was crying as she leaned forward in the back of a Border Patrol vehicle, and those crowd of observers gathered and filmed with their phones from the sidewalk, of course, chanting anti-ICE protests and things like that. So like I said, they'll murder folks in the streets, and we'll be discussing whether or not it was a murder or not. I feel like we're starting to tilt away from those ridiculous, pointless arguments while they then go and start kidnapping children, assaulting grown men in the streets after running up behind them with their hands up and they can't see them coming, and then throwing them in the back of trucks. It's every day. It's kind of like what all those people with Trump derangement syndrome said during the campaign, that this guy is a fascist and then his fascist behavior would then end people's lives. So if we're going to do this whole experiment of let's just see what Donald Trump will do, and if he does bad things, people will turn on him, and then as he's doing all those bad things, as people are turning on, the result of those bad things is people die. And from a guy like this, vast numbers of people could be dying. I already pointed out his situation with RFK Jr. But as he's unleashing these folks in the streets, destroying people's economies and their lives and jobs and livelihoods, as he keeps doing that, is it worth it for us to test out what so many people already knew? I just wonder. I ask these questions for the people who tried to act like they had some kind of a thought process that was above what was right in front of our faces. So we'll see what happens next. We'll see what happens next. Before we see what happens next, though, I think we've gotten all nice and warm. We're 15 minutes into the normal point of this stream. Glad to have you guys. Any of you guys who showed up on time, I apologize. I started like 20 minutes early, bro. I think 25 minutes early. I had to get going. I've got TDR that's happening next with John Idarola. And, I can't be late to that, even though I tried a couple of times. It doesn't work out. But still, let's head, since you guys are now showing up, let's head over to the stream. I'll do it. You guys are already there. Go ahead and like this stream for me if you could. Also, share the stream, share the videos we also do later, and also subscribe if you haven't yet. We do this every day at noon Eastern, and I promise it's usually at noon Eastern, not at 11:35 like it was today. My bad. I had a weekend. I had a birthday weekend, and it just wrapped up yesterday. So, I came in with a little bit of extra energy. No energy drinks, just extra energy. So let's keep this ball rolling so we can get through all these things because I have so much to then cover. As I did also pointed out, we did see the murder of one Alex Petty in the streets in Minneapolis on Saturday. So by Sunday, the politicians have to come out, all the apologists have to come out. But what's weird is Maria Bartiromo also came out, man, and she wasn't trying to hear any of that bullshit. It's weird. It's weird to hear it coming from her.
Another individual is dead at the hands of Border Patrol. Let's be clear. We do not know if there was any pushback from this individual who was armed. We do not have evidence that he was waving a gun, doing anything to threaten Border Patrol. He had his phone and he was shooting. He was viewing and recording the incident. That's what he was doing, recording the incident. Mm-hmm. What is your reaction? And you are an elected official. What can you do about it?
Well, look, I don't think there's any question a majority of Americans want President Trump and ICE to go in and apprehend the criminal illegals. That's what President Trump campaigned on, and he's doing exactly what he said. I look at what happened in Minneapolis versus what happened in Washington, D.C. When President Trump sent the National Guard into Washington, D.C., the Mayor Muriel Bowser, supported that. She worked, her local law enforcement worked with the president, and in a short period of time, they have really been successful in reducing the amount of crime in Washington, D.C. That was a big success. Fast forward to where we are in Minneapolis. We have a governor, an attorney general, and a mayor of Minneapolis who are getting people jacked up, trying to get them, convinced that this is, some type of illegal raid, that all their lives are threatened, and they've got all these white liberals coming in, trying to run over ICE, trying to, spray them and do everything to disrupt. And
why is that guy? Why is James Comer? Why is he talking about what happens in D.C. and all those white liberals that are now filling up the city of Minneapolis, because there's no white liberals there somehow, and getting jacked up when he was specifically asked about this narrative about how we all saw this video of one guy getting shot after he was jumped by 10 ICE agents, Border Patrol agents. Who gives a damn? They're all the same murderous groups. After they jumped on him and shot him, she had a very specific direction and question, and he didn't want anything to do with it. It's weird. It's like he knows they're wrong and wants to avoid that answer. Sadly, though, Cash Patches Patel here, he's not smart enough to try and avoid it. He just blatantly says all the stuff that we all know isn't true, and therefore we know how much of a liar he is. Here's Maria Bartiromo again. She's grilling his ass too.
What can you tell us?
Great to be with you, Maria. And look, Secretary Noem stated it perfectly. You do not get to attack law enforcement officials in this country without any repercussions. You do not get to do that in Minnesota, LA, or anywhere else. And the interagency is leading the charge out there. We've already arrested with the interagency those that violated the FACE Act and impeded a peaceful prayer in church. We've already just last night arrested 4 more individuals involved in the damage of government property that we saw the videos of online. We've arrested other individuals who've made threats to law enforcement online. So we are not messing around. It doesn't have to be in person. If you threaten law enforcement officials or civilians, we are going to come find you. And as for this latest shooting, yes, DHS and HSI are the lead, and the FBI is processing the physical evidence. So we're in possession of the firearm, which is going to go to our laboratory. But as Secretary Noem said, no one who wants to be peaceful shows up at a protest with a firearm that is loaded with 2 full magazines. That is not a peaceful protest, and you do not get to touch law enforcement. You do that anywhere, this FBI is going to be leading the charge to arrest those.
But how was he threatening Border Patrol? You've collected the evidence, you said, right? You have the handgun in your possession?
That's right.
And how was he using that handgun in terms of threatening Border Patrol? What was the threat? He had his camera, right? He was filming it.
That's something that I will let the DHS and the prosecutors, because they are the ones investigating that case. I don't want to stylize that evidence, but I trust the men and women on the ground who are trained professionals to only use it when it's absolutely necessary. And I trust Secretary Noem's leadership and DHS.
Isn't that weird? It's weird how you get a follow-up question and then Patches there has to answer by saying, I'm going to trust the investigation. What investigation? You know, just like the Renee Good murder, the investigation was internal and avoided and completely cut out. As he also pointed out, investigators and law enforcement on the ground, local ones who saw what happened, said what happened, and once they said what happened, they were cut out of said investigation. It's almost like they're a bunch of fascists. And when they call for an investigation, what it is skirting off and taking the murderers away and hiding them off, while you then say everyone that you murdered is a domestic terrorist. But there's one big thing that stuck out there. He says, no one who wants to be peaceful shows up at a protest with a firearm that is loaded with 2 full magazines, and you don't get to touch law enforcement. It's really weird. It's odd. It's like he's not the same guy he was when, conservatives, straight up Trumpers showed up at protests with huge guns and murdered people, and then somehow it wasn't a problem for fucking Patches Patel.
You cannot bring a firearm loaded with multiple magazines to any sort of protest that you want. It's that simple. You don't have that right to break the law and incite violence. We're raising money. If you have a case, we will review it for free, and we will cut the check to the lawyer to file your defamation case and get your day in court. If Kyle Rittenhouse's team is listening, or your audience is tweeting, this is what Fight with Cash is for. We will help Kyle Rittenhouse's defamation cases. We will pay for them by raising money so he can clear his name like I'm clearing mine. You cannot.
If you couldn't tell, the throwback to 2021 was Cash Patel defending Kyle Rittenhouse, who, oddly, this is a weird thing that happened. He ran up into a protest with a huge gun and then killed people. It's weird. And then afterwards, Cash Patel was talking about how he's going to raise money to help him clear his name. But he didn't say anything about how, it's weird. No one who wants to be peaceful shows up at a protest with a firearm that's loaded. It's almost like they have no principles. So the reasons we go through all of these clear descriptions of how hypocritical they are, of how murderous they are, and how biased they are, is so that the next time you see Cash Patel's face and both of his eyes are looking at each other, you should understand that he's lying to you. He's a liar. His job is to lie. His job is to then have an investigation that covers up the truth and exposes and creates more lies for us to try and believe, but nobody's believing it. So now they're attacking more people in the streets because nobody is believing that. I mean, they used to, I guess, but enough of us didn't. But oddly, this is what I was waiting on. Maybe somebody's going to say something that is all about these firearms that this Trump administration now wants to take from you. They want to take your guns away. The Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus responded and posted in response to that bullshit that Cash Patel was saying. It said, this is completely incorrect on Minnesota law. There's no prohibition on a permit holder carrying a firearm loaded with multiple magazines at a protest or rally in Minnesota. They made sure to point that out. It's like they know what they've always been saying, and then they're apparently going to stand by that even further. But this theme about taking your guns, it's really weird because as I said, maybe you don't have to believe me when I say it. Maybe you should listen to the people who are part of this administration who've always said things like those Democrats, those libs are going to take your guns. That is until Kristi Noem justifies taking this guy's gun that he legally owned.
Did the 37-year-old who had a license to carry, did he brandish a gun? And at what point did law enforcement retrieved the gun and also the magazines from him. Can you offer clarity on
This
where
individual showed up to impede a law enforcement operation and assaulted our officers. They responded according to their training and took action to defend the officer's life and those of the public around him. And I don't know of any peaceful protester that shows up with a gun and ammunition rather than a sign. This is a violent riot when you have someone showing up with weapons and are using them to assault law enforcement officers.
Because video appears to show he's disarmed before shots are fired. So I just want clarity on that.
Spoiler alert, Christy Nome gave no clarity on what we all saw in front of our faces. She instead decided to skirt that next set of questions and go to talking about how let's reset. Let's get back to the propaganda. But again, you heard it. She said, I don't know a peaceful protester that shows up with a gun. Therefore, in the United States of America, you cannot own a gun legally and carry it at a protest, according to then the people that want to take away your guns. And of course, to back that up, State TV, Fox News tried that same line. If you haven't noticed, they keep saying it.
But, you know, the question I've asked a number of times today, Ted, is who goes to a protest and brings a gun? I mean, was he not asking for some kind of trouble in that situation?
No, I really don't think so, John. Look, I've been on this channel on numerous occasions where we talk about the Second Amendment and the right to carry firearms. And I've known people to go to demonstrations before in the past and to have firearms with them. He didn't do anything with that firearm. That man is dead. And there's a question mark as to whether he should have been killed under these circumstances.
But
he's looking for trouble, according to the anchor. I guess Ted Williams there, the guest, the bald-headed man, the guest who was there and decided to push back. I've been on this network a million times, bro. We always defend the guy with the gun because it's always a conservative. We always defend the guy with the gun at protests going against this government that's overreaching and is like telling us to, like, you know, to prosper or something. It was probably his last day as a Fox News contributor because he's no longer carrying the water specifically on their new objective, which apparently is to, you know, take away your guns. But like I said, the tide is shifting. More news outlets are stopping with the niceties. Before, even when you disagree with the bullshit lies that these folks tell, they always have to be nice and kind about it. No, I'm not sure. I mean, maybe, it appears to be, it seems that way. It suggests. Sarah Seidner from CNN decided not to play that game anymore.
I'm going to call a spade a spade. If the videos are the only thing that investigators have that we have all seen, they are lying. If they have something different, they have not said so. But there was no riot, and we never saw Alex Preddy with a weapon in his hand, which is how DHS Secretary Nome described him approaching officers. There is not a single video showing that. What we do see is Alex Preddy holding a cell phone, not a gun. We do know he had a gun on him, but he also had a legal permit to carry. So if the videos that we have all seen and the community has all seen are the only pieces of evidence that DHS has, and they are not saying anything different, only saying that he did these things like holding a gun or approaching with a gun, it's just not true.
It's just not true. That's not some kind of opinion piece. That's her literally pointing out what we're all seeing, because as we've seen these this government officials come out and tell us what we just saw is not what we just saw. I guess it's a little bit heartening to see that happening more. I'm not surprised to see Sarah Seidner being one of the folks that are doing that, though. I feel like she's been on the right side of the way that she reports and the way she carries her work from the anchor desk, also at CNN as well. But we're seeing right in front of us what they expect us to do. And when you get that kind of slight pushback, I mean, not even slight, significant, normal, clear pushback from folks in the media, what you get is a domino effect. So when Nazis like Greg Bovino go on TV to try and act like they're going to tell us what we saw, people like Dana Bash also find a way to push back on it.
Why was an unarmed man shot multiple times by law enforcement, by your Border Patrol agents?
Dana, you don't know he was unarmed. I don't know he was unarmed. That's freeze frame adjudication of a crime scene via a photo. That's why we have investigators. That's why we have an investigation that is going to answer those questions. How many shots were fired? Who fired shots? Where was the guns? Where were the guns located? All those questions are going
Sir,
to
I
be
just
answered.
want, I think you can see the screen.
In the investigation.
We're
not going to adjudicate that here on TV in one freeze frame there.
Okay, it's not a freeze frame. We're showing a video of one of your agents taking the gun away, and that happened before Freddie was shot.
We don't know that agent was taking any gun away. That could have been the agents, because we don't know that. The facts are going to come to light.
So you're disputing the video that that's what happened?
With an investigation. That's why we investigate.
Well, with respect, you say that's why we investigate, but you're also drawing other conclusions that sort of fly in the face of waiting for an investigation.
It's those kind of moments that usually the anchors from these major networks would let slide. After he then completely disagrees with the reality we're seeing in our faces, ask him again. So you're disagreeing with what we're seeing because we just saw it from every angle possible. Again, the reason why I don't want cameras out there, which is part of the reasons why Alex Preddy was killed, because he had this weapon of a camera that would record and show everyone what it is that they're doing. So she decided to push back. Good. Like, and make sure that we all see who the real liar is in this situation. And that flusters liars. It flusters these Nazis. So in his SS gear, he still sat there and tried to push this madness.
There's no evidence that he was perpetrating violence. And there's no evidence, unless you have it, and we'd love to see it if there is, that he was intending to massacre law enforcement, other than the fact that he was there and he had a gun lawfully.
He meant to be there beforehand. Again, Dana, he came there beforehand.
How do you know that?
A reason.
How do you know that?
Because he was there.
But all he was doing was filming and documenting it, which is legal. He was carrying a gun, which in Minneapolis is legal.
I didn't say it wasn't. And I didn't say it wasn't legal.
So then what did he do that was illegal?
Assault federal law enforcement when he does that. That's an active law enforcement crime scene.
Where do you see in the video that he was
decided to enter into?
Where do you see in the video that he was assaulting law enforcement? Because from everything we have seen, law enforcement was assaulting him when he was there trying to help another individual.
Dana, law enforcement doesn't assault anyone. Follow directions of law enforcement. Follow directions of law enforcement in an active crime scene. It's very evident he didn't want to do that. Very evident that the other individuals didn't want to do that. And it's too bad the consequences had to be paid because he injected himself into that crime scene. I can't say that enough. He made the decision to go there. We didn't make the decision to talk to him. We didn't even know that individual was in existence until he came into that crime scene.
I want to go back to...
You know, at one point, Bavino was talking about law enforcement doesn't do anything wrong. Law enforcement don't do anything wrong. That's their standard. That means everything they do is legal. It's also what Stephen Miller said. You can do anything you want and you've got this immunity. That's what J.D. Vance said. You can do anything you want in these streets and we're going to excuse it and you have absolute immunity. Donald Trump said it during the campaign. It's almost like we could see it coming. And now the pushback and the arguments have to happen over our reality. And little Greg Bavino has to keep talking about how what we saw and what we experienced and what those folks in the scene literally recorded with their own devices that you don't want them to have, how we see it. And the next step is for them to keep telling us that and say, are you going to start believing us or we're going to have to shoot you too? So I wonder, anytime a Republican who hasn't condemned this openly, which is like 99% of them, anytime they put their face in front of a camera and a podium and want to answer some questions or want to maybe put forward their new agendas or something, the first question should always be, so why are you against the Second Amendment in this country? Why do you want to take away Americans' guns? Because you haven't been against how they took away an American's gun before they murdered him. I'm just saying, like, use the same thing on them that they like to use on folks who had no intention, because trust me, no Democrat was trying to take away people's guns, no matter how many actual progressives and people who wanted fewer people to be shot in the streets like this, for them to actually do that in a responsible way. They've always pushed this as some kind of a fear tactic. That is until Donald F. and Trump pushes for it. So let's go back to Kristi Noem. I mean, we've been seeing how Bovino has been pushing these lies. I just want to keep showing you this is a very directed, well-planned effort. Well planned, but not well carried out because reality's still in our faces. She even talked to Peter Doocy.
You mentioned the protocol. There is an angle of the video that we've been playing all morning where it shows an officer removing a weapon either from Alex Preddy's waistband or a holster. And he walks away with the weapon before officers start shooting. It appears that Alex Preddy was disarmed. If he was disarmed, is it the protocol to use deadly force?
And that's all part of this investigation. Every video will be analyzed. Everything will be looked at. And that's part of the answers that I can't speak to every single thing that those officers thought, but this happened in seconds. They clearly feared for their lives and took action to defend themselves and the people around them. If you watch that and you listen to those videos, you can hear someone yelling, gun, gun, gun. And those agents and officers reacted to that. So as this investigation goes forward, all of that will be analyzed.
If you have to dodge the question and talk about how an investigation that you're not carrying out needs to be conducted before you then admit what we all saw happen, why would it make any sense for you to then go talk about how this was a dangerous situation and he went out to try and attack law enforcement? I thought you have to go through an investigation first. Isn't it weird how the investigation doesn't have to be conducted before they go and insert their opinions that aren't based on anything we've seen into that investigation or into what they're trying to sway people to think and believe with their own eyes and ears? It's almost like the investigation doesn't mean anything to these people. That's not what they're about. So again, watch this. Back to Greg Bovino. He had a press conference about this whole thing, and the same way that Kristi Noem was asked about a very clear thing that we just saw in our faces, and she switched to an investigation before she decided to run away from that. It's like they all do the exact same thing. Look at his answer to this.
Questions?
All right. Go ahead. One question. First question, when did agents learn that he had a gun, and did he ever brandish that weapon at agents?
Allie, this situation again is evolving. This situation is under investigation. Those facts will come to light. This particular incident is being investigated just like we investigate other similar incidents like we've done over the past several years. It's in the hands of professionals. Those facts will come to light.
All right, going on to the next question. So, did he have an additional gun, or was the gun moved from the scene? And I watched the video from start to finish of that woman who was wearing the red jacket, and it doesn't seem like he pulled the weapon at any point. So, did the account come from the agent? Did they say that he pulled the gun before, during, after? When does the gun come out?
Again, this situation's evolving. This is under investigation. Those facts will come to light, but let's take a look at the gun. You can see the gun here on the screen there that individual possessed. It appears to be a semi-automatic, high-capacity type, possibly a Sig Sauer 9mm.
All right, no more questions. Sorry, no more questions, sir.
Commander.
Isn't that weird? They opened up questions, took two before his sorry ass ran out of there. He must have signaled to the whoever the handler is, yeah, you got to get me out of here because I have no answers for all these questions. All I have is a bunch of propaganda that I'm supposed to pitch, and they're supposed to believe it. But now that they're asking me, yo, so where's this gun you were talking about? Did you say you took it away? Wait, did you say maybe he had a second gun? What's your story? None of this makes any sense. But you saw him jump straight to an investigation again. What investigation? There's no investigation that's going to actually carry out anything where we see what happened and they acknowledge what happened, because that's not their objective. Their objective is to murder people and then say that they have absolute immunity. So ask yourself the same question. At this press conference, when he got to spout off his pre-prepared remarks before he was asked a couple of questions, this was his words before they have their investigation that he says they're going to have.
The suspect also had 2 loaded magazines and no accessible ID. This looks like a situation
where an individual wanted to do maximum damage and massacre law enforcement.
How does it look that way if you haven't had your investigation that you said you need to have when you're cornered with the actual facts of the situation? I know this is common sense stuff. I understand. I feel like I'm voicing what a normal thought process would voice. But all of us have these normal thought processes. And then since they know that, their objective is to make sure you don't have that thought process anymore. You stop thinking that way. You stop understanding that they're liars. This is their attempt to change our reality. And you're supposed to accept this stuff. People aren't going to accept it. They're going to keep trying, but the point is to stay focused on ridding ourselves of them. That has to be our objective. Have the indications, have these clarifications, have these exposures of who these folks are, like I've been trying to do today, and then after that, refocus on how do we get rid of these guys? How do we end this shit? How does this finally stop? Which brings me to maybe one of those answers. I like to end with something that means something outside of complaining and dispelling lies and getting angry at these Nazis. Maybe there's a chance for something else to finally happen. The anger came from one Representative Seth Moulton. This is the day of that killing. Let's look for some answers, but let's start with the anger.
What we just saw this morning on the streets of Minneapolis is another outright murder by federal officials. And let me just be clear. Those federal ICE officers are absolute cowards. I'm a Marine veteran standing here telling you to your face they are unprofessional, pathetic cowards. Because if a Marine, an 18-year-old Marine, did that in Iraq in the middle of a war zone, he would be court-martialed. Because it is murder. And you pathetic little cowards who have to wear face masks because you're so damn scared couldn't even effectively wrestle a guy to the ground, so you needed to shoot him. This is why ICE needs to be prosecuted. Yeah, I voted to defund it, but ICE, you need to be prosecuted. And Director Lyons, who's running ICE right now, I hope you're hearing this from this Marine to you. You guys are criminal thugs. You need to be held accountable to the law if you think you can enforce it. And you need to be prosecuted right now.
Representative Moulton, veteran, is talking about further than just defunding ICE, but also prosecuting folks. I've been wondering, people that kind of say it and be like, man, I can't wait for the, for the trials. I can't wait for them to pop up whenever and however those happen. I don't know, but maybe we can get to that point. Because again, his anger was there based off of what is it they're saying and had just done. And maybe even the prosecutions could come, but let's focus on that first step that he pointed out again.
In terms of ICE funding, the Senate appropriators have come out with a plan that would give ICE, I think, $403 million in increases for beds. And there really aren't any binding accountability arrangements. So are you going to support this?
I have an idea for ICE funding. Zero. That's the idea. That's what ICE needs.
Got it. Thank you so much, Congressman. Appreciate it.
We got congressmen. We've got bigger names talking about defund ICE. Maybe it's petty. I just want to keep reminding folks of all of those folks with Trump derangement syndrome, the radical left, all the folks that they like to compare to the left version of MAGA, when they said things like, maybe we should defund ICE as they attack American citizens, as they attack migrants wrongfully, as they separate families, as the detention centers are also horrific places where people are suffering and are tortured. Maybe this organization that causes terror, maybe it should be replaced. Maybe they shouldn't keep getting funding. Ro Khanna was talking about that funding that was just voted and approved of in the House with the help of like 6 or 7 Democrats. This is him talking about it.
Today, congressional leaders released a bipartisan bill to fund ICE. It's a moral disgrace. It has an $18 billion plus up for the ICE agency. That's right. They are tripling ICE's budget at a time that ICE is ripping American citizens out of their cars and arresting and shooting American citizens. I will not only vote no on this, I will help lead the opposition to it. We cannot be tripling ICE's budget. We need to be cutting ICE's budget. Today,
Well, again, Ro Khanna's on the right side of things, similar to the way he's on the right side of things with the Epstein situation. Oh, we haven't even heard about that either, huh? That's obviously one of the main things that Donald Trump is trying to protect his name from being exposed and all the nasty, dirty details of his life surrounding and hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein and the child sex trafficking, which they've continued in child trafficking of migrant children. But as he also pointed out, there's this issue with how they're trying to defund ICE, and Democrats just keep on adding on to it because I guess they're still afraid. Here's one of those radical leftists that was, too on board with this whole thing.
But you obviously believe ICE should be abolished, but there are many in your party who are not going that far. Is that a problem for you?
I think any step in the direction of reining in and cutting the funding of an agency that is attacking U.S. citizens, that are kidnapping 5-year-olds, that are using them as bait to open doors, and that are privately circulating that they can violate everyday Americans' constitutional rights by busting into their doors, they deserve to be defunded. I'll take any step in that direction.
Are you?
I played it last week as well. AOC has been on this. The folks that understand the situations that it always has been have been on this. How quickly and swiftly will the fight come, though? I want to show you how maybe the roller coaster keeps happening. Couple more flashbacks. Because we've got folks who are being murdered in the streets. We've got an occupying army in Minneapolis, St. Paul area. They're attacking people right now. And it's not just there. It's in Los Angeles. I believe it's still in Chicago, down in New Orleans area, up in Maine. They're all over the place now with this. It's just we're seeing all these things happening in Minneapolis. And I don't want you guys to forget, after the murder of Renee Good, the mayor, Jacob Fry, said this, since we're talking about abolishing ICE.
There's little I can say, again, that'll make this situation better, but I do have a message for our community, for our city, and I have a message for ICE. To ICE, get the fuck out of Minneapolis. We do not want you here. Your stated reason for being in this city is to create some kind of safety, and you are doing exactly the opposite. People are being hurt. Families are being ripped apart.
Jacob Fry had it figured out. This was right after Renee Good was murdered. Get the F out of Minneapolis. Get out. Get out. And if they get out, I'm not sure if that means he'd rather them go to another city or if he'd rather them not do this anymore, which would require us to not pay them to do this anymore with our taxpayer dollars. Here's a bit more like I guess beaten and broken version of Jacob Fry. Look at his face.
Let me get you on record if I can, Mr. Mayor. Do you support abolishing ICE?
I do not support abolishing ICE. However, I absolutely oppose the way that this administration is conducting themselves with us. Look, there are a number of entities presently, agencies
But
at the
isn't that
federal
what your
government,
lawsuit is about?
that are
Stopping ICE
conducting
right
themselves. No, you should read the lawsuit. The lawsuit says that, hey, ICE doing ICE stuff is not what we're talking about right now. Again, we've had ICE in our city before. We've had ICE in our state before. It is.
And then you got to explain yourself to Mr. Peabody there on Fox News, who said, well, wait a second. You said you want them out of your city. You have a lawsuit and everything. How would that not work for defunding ICE? What's the matter with you? I've got you cornered now because, of course, you just said you want to keep ICE around, but you want them to F out. Now you got to fight with that loser and him cornering you on your lack of logic. Which one is it then? Which one is it, bro? Have you seen the latest in the roller coaster of Jacob Fry, mayor of Minneapolis? It was get the F out. It was I don't support defunding ICE. And now I guess it's all backpedaled into pretty please.
This is not how it has to be. So to President Trump, This is a moment to act like a leader. Put Minneapolis, put America first in this moment. Let's achieve peace. Let's end this operation, and I'm telling you, our city will come back. Safety will be restored. We're asking for you to take action now to remove these federal agents.
Jacob Fry has been downgraded to pleading with Donald Trump. Please, pretty please, for the sake of peace, Donald Trump, please remove them from my city. What makes him think that's going to work? Why does he think that's going to work? Because, you know, after they got upset at him for using the F word, he doubled down. That is before he then said he's all in support of ICE, that he said get out of his city. And then now, hopefully, pretty please, Donald Trump, can you do that for me for the sake of peace? Donald Trump doesn't care about peace. As a matter of fact, Donald Trump despises peace. Donald Trump and all these fascists, these Nazis, what they want is fighting bloodshed and dominance and, you know, a fascist country that we're currently living in. So they're pretty happy right now. Here's this creator that I ran across, Christian Van Linda. His handle is Hyper Vigilance. He breaks it down so much more cleanly. Why you can't, you know, appeal to the better angels of evil people like Donald Trump and any of these MAGA folks. I think it's pretty clear how he put this.
Kwame Ture once said, in order for nonviolence to work, your opponent must have a conscience, and the United States has none. You know, one of my main message points is that narcissism is interpersonal oppression. Therefore, large society-wide systems of oppression are rooted in pathological narcissism. And so as I hear Jacob Fry and Tim Walz kind of begging Donald Trump to stop, it feels very familiar. As somebody that's dealt with a pathological narcissist for my entire life, as somebody that helps people deal with pathological narcissists, I can tell you with certainty, this is how you lose to the narcissist. You appeal to their humanity. They don't have any. In fact, Donald Trump is enjoying their pleas. He's enjoying watching all of the violence and chaos, as is his cult, right? And so when you're dealing with a narcissist, which is also a fascist, when you're dealing with systems of oppression, you either stand up to them or you get run through. And that's the sad fact of what we're dealing with. You cannot appeal to the humanity of people who have none.
It can't be any clearer than that. We saw Donald Trump watch his mob run up on the Capitol on January 6th of 21 because he enjoys that. That's what he was looking for. That was what he was hoping be the culmination of his attempt to send his foot soldiers in there to save his ass from that election loss that he took, that he's still talking about, that has been adjudicated so many times over of how he lost that election. So last clip here, you guys, before I jump out of here. Heather Cox Richardson. She's an American historian who works as a professor of history at Boston College. She teaches courses on American Civil War, the Reconstruction era, the American West, and the Plains Indians, right? So I believe like she has some information and she's clear on this whole thing. So if we've got Jacob Fry, who's trying to appeal to the humanity of Donald Trump and MAGA, and obviously that's not working. And then we've got clear violations of our Constitution and all of our rights and the rule of law. And the only thing left is for people with a backbone. Maybe you can pressure them to maybe do something about it. This was pretty stark to me. Again, Heather Cox Richardson pointed out what it is and how close it can be for us to change things. I mean, we're talking defund ICE, we're talking about getting them out of cities, but also how about getting the guy in this administration out that has been doing this? I think it's kind of sad that all it takes is what she's going to break down here.
The Republicans could stop this tonight if they wanted to. Elected Republicans could stop this tonight if they wanted to. And here's the thing. You know how many Republicans that would take? 16 Republicans. 16 Republicans voting with the Democrats. This is a country of 340 million people. 16 people could stop this. And you could actually impeach and remove Trump with 23. 23 people could stop this if they wanted to.
Crazy. They just don't want to. It's not just Donald Trump. This entire party is a Nazi party. That's who they are. This watch party is over, though. I got to run over to TDR now and get the next hour and a half of, throwing my opinions out there in with John Iadarola. Glad you guys were here. We went for a solid hour and a half almost, damn near, you guys. So if you missed that first story too, it was Bill Cassidy and how embarrassing he is. Those will all be up on the page in the channel later. Make sure you guys subscribe, also like these videos, and come back and check it out. Let people know what's happening with us. I'll be back on tomorrow at noon to go through more of these things. I'm always hoping for some good news. Haven't got much of it yet, but we'll see. If you guys head over to TDR, I'll see you there in a second. Appreciate you. Love you. Happy Monday. It is still the best damn day of the week. Let's get this week going. See you later, man.